Hey guys, this is Bobby here again with another video. Before I begin, I wanted to thank all of you for giving me a decent response, I would say, for my first video. I've got a fair bit of follower or subscriber on my YouTube channel who are looking forward to, I guess, for more videos. Now, one of the requests I have got since I posted the first video, and many of you have written, is asking for posting a video of my entire processing or workflow. Now, I want to state that up front that I'm not going to do that, and I'm never probably going to do that. It just takes too much of time, and also different image has different workflow to it. So there's no standard, there's no preset to it that I do exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things for every image. And it is not possible to cater to everyone's request about looking at a particular image and asking how was this processed or how was that processed. For one, I have severe time constraints. I am almost traveling 3 weeks in a month, and I'm not a full-time photographer. So photography is still a hobby and a passion, and I'm happy to share what I know. But I think we'll have to draw a line between what I can do and what I can't do. So what I can't do is to keep processing videos and posting them, or keep posting a pre and a post of an image. I mean, I have done that in the past, but it's not possible to just keep sending that. Now, for this video, the topic that I want to talk about is natural dynamic range. So this is a question that I get all the time, asking me if my images are HDR. And I've said this a lot of times in the past to a lot of people that they are not. I very rarely actually shoot the HDRs, which is multiple images at different exposure level and then blending them together. I do that, but I very rarely do that. Most of my images are single shots, and they have been processed to create a visual experience of how I saw a particular scene. And so so the way I want to describe this is that camera and human eye are vastly different, right? So I want to show you this quick image that I found in this website called Cambridge Color. Now, if you look at this one, right, this is where your eye is focused on the background, which is sun, and your foreground is all darkened. Here is an image where your eye or camera was focused on the highlight, or sorry, on the foreground, and your background is all blown up. And this is how our mental image is. Now, if your camera, while you are doing a metering, is metering here, then this is what you're going to get. And if your camera was metering here, then this is what you're going to get. Even with the best camera, you will get an average of these, but it'll never be like this. So what I try to create is really this image, the mental image, or the image that my eyes saw. All right, that is the philosophy of processing that I follow. Now again, please remember, this is what works for me. I'm not saying this is the best way of doing it. I'm not asking you to do it for yourselves. I am just sharing what I do. A lot of people have liked it, so I'm guessing there must be a certain level of acceptability to this technique. But I want to give a very strong disclaimer in saying I'm not professing or I'm not preaching what you should do. All right, so you need to know that. Another thing that I would also point out as a disclaimer is that for the people who believe that images straight out of the camera is what they call quote unquote pure photography, I strongly suggest you stop watching this video right now, because I've said this multiple times. Camera is a dumb device which records data. If you're pointing and shooting to a particular scene and you just take that JPEG out and show it to me and saying that's pure photography, then I strongly disagree. There are times you have adjusted the camera setting to shoot a particular thing. Let's take a case, an example. Let's say you're shooting a bird against a sky. To get a right exposure level, you would have probably done a spot metering with an EV value of +2, depending on the at what point in time you were shooting, your ISO would be at certain level, and so on and so forth. Now, if you are going to use the same setting, assuming you've forgotten to reset, and you're shooting a sunset or a sunrise, you're definitely going to overexpose, and not just overexpose because it was in a spot metering. You might also get a lot of things wrong in the image. So to say that that particular JPEG, because it came out of the camera the way it was, is pure photography is just nonsense. I'm sorry to say this. So yeah, so if you believe in that, just stop watching the video right here. For the ones who want to know how I do it, well, so here is I want to take an example of this particular image. This was shot at Pigeon Point in California about 2 years ago. Now, as you can see, this is the default setting. So this is how it was shot, and so the sky has come fairly well. I think I used a new an ND four-stop ND here. You can see on the top right corner right here, I think I had physically held the ND on my hand. I had not used the filter holder. So you can see that this part of the sky is slightly overexposed than this part. Reason being, I guess it would have moved, or it was probably not held properly. So that's just a case in point in saying I have already used an ND to bring the details and the colors out in the sky. But having said that, I'm not comfortable with the dark details here. I'm also not comfortable with the foreground being a little too dark. So this is what I will adjust in an image now, and there are lots of ways of doing it. 70% of my work to adjust something like this would actually be on the ACR. I'm using a Camera Raw 8.6, right here I would actually adjust most of it. So I would probably adjust the highlight, get a little more color and details. In this case, detail is probably not relevant, but color is yes. Push the shadows, get a little more details here, push it more to a level where I want to, where I'm comfortable. Push up the contrast, and you've got a decent, I would say, a decent image here. Okay, and if I were to really be working on this image, I would have probably just sharpened this a bit and worked on the noise, and would have been probably be ready to post it. But assuming, for the assumption's sake, let's just go back to our default value and see how can we adjust this if we had not to do this in the ACR, right? And so this is the image now, and let's just take a couple of things here in saying how can we adjust. Let's try and bring a little more darkness into the sky, and again, multiple ways of doing it. I'm going to talk about 3 ways of doing it. One is using the level curve, and then using the curves, and then using the masking technique, and kind of using a gradient tool on that. And you can use it for both darkening and lightening. Second we will talk about is a dodge and burn tool. And the third technique is the one that I use, which is basically on the color dodge and color burn. I usually never use the dodge and burn tool that the Photoshop gives. So let's look at the first one. So if I want to darken the sky, right, all I would do is create a duplicate layer. Oh, by the way, before I again go further, one point I want to make is that most of the technique that I would ever post video for is a little advanced levels of processing. Now, if you're not familiar with layers and masking and dodging, burning, and the tools which the Photoshop gives, then these tutorials probably won't make sense for you. So yeah, a basic level of what Photoshop is and the basic techniques is a must for you to understand of what I would say. All right, so having duplicated the layer, I just go pull curves, and I just want to darken the sky, and I darken the sky to a point where I like, okay, and I don't care about the low lights at this point in time, or the foreground at this point in time. So when I do this, right, I like the sky. This is good enough for me, and all I got to do after that is use a gradient tool and just, sorry, I actually did the reverse. So I just pull the gradient tool from here and pull it down to a point where I want the darkening to work, which is this. And you can see that it pulls up a nice gradient here, and you see after and before, right? And I could have done it more. So let's say I decide that this is not good enough. I go back and I pull it further down to this point, and here we go. Okay, it's nice and good. All right, that was to make the sky dark. Let's just merge these 2 layers. Now this layer for now has darkened my sky. Let's just duplicate this layer, and I now want to lighten this one. So again, go to curves and work on the low lights and push it to a point where I like. Let's say this one. I like the details on the foreground here. Go back, again use the gradient tool. This time I pull it from this side all the way up here. And here we go. When you, let me just merge this layer also. Now you see the difference between this and this. I have a little more details here now, and I have a little more darkness here. So the sky is, you see the difference. All right, so this was one of them. Now let me keep this image for now and just talk about a little bit of a dodging and burning right now. So this is a tool that Photoshop gives you, which is dodging and burning. Burning tool obviously darkens your details, and dodging, kind of brings back your details in the image. Now, I never use this tool, and the reason for that is I find the burn tool pretty destructive. I get a lot of banding issues, and I don't really find it very even. As for the dodging tool, it lightens the whole thing, but it also washes it up. So the colors, I lose the punchiness of the color, I lose the contrast, I even lose the color. Having said that, this is definitely a tool which can be used for adjusting your dynamic range. So let's just again duplicate a layer. Let me call this dodge and burn, and let's see how we can use it. So let me just first try and dodge. Let me increase the brush size. Let's keep the opacity, let's say at 20, and then I start to burn it here. Right, and as I burn it, you can see I'm getting the details. There you go. Now, as I said, it is definitely washed, but you get the details. I can also use the burn tool and maybe get a little more darkness here, or a little more color and contrast, right? So if you look at it, this is before and this is after. So you adjust your dynamic range. As I said, I don't use this tool because, as you can see, if I have to zoom up, this part where I've used the dodge tool, I've lost a lot of color. It's washed up. It's definitely lost its contrast. So what I do really is, and this is a technique I picked up from a friend of mine, I create a dodge and burn layer. Okay, and then I paint on that. So that's the alternative way of doing it. To do that on Mac, I'm not very sure how would this work on Windows. I'm guessing on Windows it's Alt key, but figure this out. In Mac it is Option key. I press Option key and I create a new layer. When you do that, you get this particular pop-up. It asks you to create a new layer, but unlike a normal layer where I would just say okay, here what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my mode to a soft light. Okay, so this is one of the blending modes of the layer, and you would change that mode to soft light, and you would fill your soft light neutral color 50% gray. When you say okay, it creates this layer which is gray. Now this layer does not have any effect on your image, but as you start to paint on this is when you get the desired effect. So let's do this. So with the layer as my gray layer, and with my brush as black, my foreground color is set to black, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint. Let me reduce the opacity first to a nice comfortable 20, and I want to bring details here. Okay, here we go. Here we go. So I am actually using just the, and when you see this and you go back here, you see the layer, it's darkened this area. And I can just change the foreground color to white right here and paint this area. And I get more details. Now when you do this, compared to what we did earlier, you will see that your colors and contrast is not as bad as how it was with the color and dodge. Now here is the trick part, okay, and this is the interesting part about this technique. What you can really do, and what I really do, is I actually do color dodging and color burning. And what that means is I can pick the parts and the color associated with them, and I can paint it in a different light. So let me show you a quick technique on doing that. Let's say I want to make this a little more red. All right, so what I will do is I'll pick up my color picker, and I will point out to what color I want. Let's say I want this. I'll choose a very light color, not the dark, the light part of it. Let's say here, and with opacity set to 20, I'll just brush this on only on the reds, the ones that I want to highlight. All right, you see how it kind of starts to pop out. Now I can do the same thing with the green. So again, color picker on the green, choose the light side of the green, come back, and here we go. Now this is something that I keep using when I want to pop out the ambient light. A lot of images that I've posted from Death Valley and Yosemite, I've actually used this. Now again, going to this part and reducing the brush size. Now with the green as my foreground color, I bring out a little more details. Okay, here we go. And again, and this is a slow technique. It takes time to really do this because you'll have to really literally like paint and do it very carefully to get the desired effect. So let me just try and do some reds just to kind of balance the image. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I don't want to make this tutorial a very long one, so I'm just going to be very quick. I'm just, yeah, maybe this car part. Okay, and just for the effect, let me also do another thing, which is I pick up the sky color, which is here, maybe do a little more color contrast on this and paint. Okay, let me also, because this is just an example, I'm going to push the opacity just to show you. Sorry. I think I'll have to go a little more dark here. Yeah, here we go. And you can see the effect, right? And now when you come back to this layer and see the after and before, you see a big difference. So there you go. This is typically how I would play with the natural dynamic range. So for example, one of the things I would like to immediately point out and correct is the sky. It's too dark up here and I would like it to be a little light. So I would, come back here and do a nice lightening of the sky. And this typically does not cause any dodge and burn. Again, I'm doing this quickly, so this is not optimized, but there you go. So using this particular dodge and burn technique, you can change a lot of things. All right, this has already been more than a 15-minute video. I didn't want to make it so long, but thank you for watching. Leave me your comments and let me try and come back and post another one. Have a great weekend, guys. Bye.